One of the things that I would love to do for the sports card hobby on YouTube is actually give you the information that I have over 40 years of collecting. And so I'm going to make a new series called Can You Invest in Sports Cards? So if you want to know reason number one, stay tuned. Welcome back to EDI Sports Cards. So can you invest in sports cards? So I've gotten a lot of comments on the previous videos about the truth about investing, even on the PPP video with Jeff Wilson, who is called the sports card investor. So I wanted to answer this question. And so this is going to be a series because I'll do one reason per video. So this is going to be reason number one that you cannot invest in sports cards. So that is because there is no exchange. So one of the things that allows you to either invest or not invest is transparency. And one of the things that you can do with stocks or bonds or whatever it is that you actually want to invest in, even in the currency market, is there's an exchange. And the reason that you want an exchange is because there need to be rules and there needs to be transparency. One of the reasons why crypto is the worst thing you could ever do with your money is because there are no rules. And even though you think that there's transparency, there clearly is no transparency. You have no idea what the company is doing with your cash, as we saw with Sam Bankman-Fried and FTX. They just stole the money. So if you have no transparency and you have no exchange, you cannot invest in sports cards, because one of the things that you don't know is what's called the float of the cards. Now in stocks, the float means the number of shares outstanding. So you know how many shares people own, and then you have a bunch of shares that are outstanding. That means that's what's left to buy. If there's less shares outstanding, that means there's a high demand for that stock. And that's a stock that you probably want to hold because the price is going to go up. That's when you also want to sell because you're going to get the most for your stock. When you want to buy is when there's a lot more float, but you know that the fundamentals of the company are strong. So even though the stock may be down because there's a lot of shares outstanding, people don't want to buy that stock, but you know that the fundamentals are good, so long term, the stock should rebound. You can't do that with sports cards. One, because you have no idea how many cards were printed. Two, you have no idea how many cards are out there. Three, all the grading companies are not tied together. So pop count on PSA is different than pop count on SGC and on CSG and on HSA. Like you can name the three-letter names all you want. There needs to be some level of, there's this many 10s in PSAs, SGCs, BGS, CSGs, so that you have some idea as to what the market is. If you don't know the market, you can't invest in it. That's called speculation, pure speculation. And what you're going to do is lose your shirt. End of story. Now, what you can do is buy and sell cards. But the minute you hold your cards, you are not an investor. You're a collector. And if you have more than 10,000 cards that you're holding, you're not even a collector, you're a hoarder. Now, I am a hoarder. I am a total hoarder, and I'm working on it. I am trying to consolidate and get down to a much more reasonable level. But in my heyday, because I was a dealer when I was a teenager back in the 80s and early 90s, and for those of you that don't know the story, so I did a show practically every single weekend in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania from 8th grade through 12th grade. In fact, Gary V grew up in the same area as me, and he probably bought sports cards off me because he's only about a year younger than me. So he probably saw me at a show, probably bought cards from me. I probably talked to him because he's just like me. We grew up in the same area. We're both Jewish. We have the same story. So what I want you to know is in my heyday, I had over 6 million cards. I had cards all over my parents' basement, plus I had a storage unit. I had way too many cards. And so I had to get rid of them. I had to sell them off. And as you probably watch, Chasing Cardboard, which is one of the greatest YouTube sports cards channels that I can ever recommend. I love Ty. I love the show. Highly recommend it. Great produced show. I'm hoping to create my own series for YouTube for you guys called Adventures in Sports Cards. And so part of this is all about getting out there and trying to help the community. So that's reason number one that you cannot invest in sports cards, is because there's no exchange and no transparency, no rules. It's all wrapped up in one. If there was an exchange, there would be rules, there would be transparency, you would know what you're buying, and then you would know what other people have. If you don't know what other people have, then your card is legitimately worthless. Legit. Because all that the market is whether or not someone will give you money or not. And that's not a market. That's called a flea market. That's not a market. That's a flea market. So sports card investor Jeff Wilson, stop telling people to invest money in sports cards. If you want to buy cards, buy cards. I love buying cards. I also like selling cards. I don't sell as many as I buy, unfortunately. Again, that's how you get to be a hoarder like me. I have well more than 10,000 cards still, but I'm getting it down. I'm no longer in the million range. I am now down to under 100,000. Thank goodness. But it's way too much. So again, hopefully you can understand this is what you need to do. Buy, sell, collect. If you're not buying and selling, you're collecting. You're not investing. If you hold on to a card, you're not an investor. You're a collector. And if you have more than 10,000 cards in your collection, you're a hoarder. Because you cannot appreciate more than 10,000 cards. It's impossible. It's impossible. I want to thank you for joining me. If you haven't subscribed, I'm just going to say it once, only in this video. Subscribe now. Have a great holiday. Happy New Year to all of you.